So Avowed is a game I've been keeping my eye on pretty much since that first teaser trailer came out. And when that trailer came out, I thought it looked so promising to me that I even put it in my first Skyrim Alternatives video. Obviously not everyone liked that because this was a teaser trailer after all. There wasn't any gameplay or even a release date. This might as well have been a concept trailer. Fast forward a few months after that video, and here we are looking at a gameplay trailer. And that trailer looks pretty good. Hey girls, guys, and all people like, it's Mox here, and hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Avowed. So what is Avowed, and is it going to be a true Skyrim alternative, and could it maybe even be a successor? The first thing we gotta talk about is the visuals. It's the first thing we see, and that affects our first impressions a lot. Honestly, I think it looks great. It doesn't look photorealistic or anything like that, but it does have its own sort of art style. It isn't cartoony by any means, but again, not photorealistic necessarily. And that's not really a bad thing. I think games that are photorealistic have their place in the gaming space. They're just not always what's best for a game. Also, I like to do this thing where I compare games to Skyrim and not learn from the mistakes of that decision. So, this compared to Skyrim. In terms of the visuals, it obviously looks better. That's vanilla Skyrim, at least. Skyrim did come out over a decade ago, so I would hope it looks better, but modded Skyrim is a whole different story. I have no idea if this game is going to have mod support or how big the modding community will even be or anything like that, but if it's anything like Skyrim's modding scene, this game will really take off and have a real chance of beating Skyrim out in, like, everything. Graphics included. Seeing as this is a modern game, modders would have a lot less to work on when improving the game's visuals. But anyway, we're done talking about modded Skyrim. The textures themselves look really good, from the environments to the different assets, and in terms of the textures alone, I think the armor and the weapons probably look the best, which I would assume is a bit more important than the actual environment for some people, so that's nice to see. I kind of keep them all pretty level for me, so I like them all to be decent looking at least. Something that always annoys me with Skyrim modded armor is the armor looking like crazy 16K, and then the rest of the world looking absolutely garbage compared to that. Like, it's too big of a difference. It's kind of immersion breaking for me. Up close, some of the characters look a little, I don't know what the right word would be. Uncanny, maybe? I'm mostly talking about the fish dude, but now that I'm looking at it, I think it's just the camera. Yeah, I think they look fine. I think it's just the cameras, like the FOV or something. I don't know. This one scene in particular is a little immersion breaking for me. The environments, though, look amazing. I love the look of the towns, but the wilderness is what really stands out to me. The plains with the mountains in the back, the weird, like, rocky area covered with those crazy magic mushrooms, campsites, beautiful forests, caves filled with monsters, it all looks so good. Another visual we need to talk about is the magic, but I'm giving that its own dedicated category, so we'll get to that in a minute. Something I'm pretty much required to talk about at this point is creature design. It is such an important part of games and media to me, and to a lot of people. Creature design is what kept me playing Fallout 76 when it first came out, so that has to show how important it is to me for it to blind me to all the issues that Fallout 76 had when it first released. Now, I think the creature design in this game looks good, but I would need to see more before I can call it truly great. All we can see in terms of creatures and enemies are like skeletons, a troll, goblin looking thing, some undead things covered in spores, bears covered in spores, and these little lizard imp looking things. Oh, and some very big bugs. All those are pretty standard or not too crazy for a fantasy RPG. The most unique things being the spore covered enemies. And these really remind me of Fallout because, you know, irradiated mutant animals and such, or The Last of Us for obvious reasons. The spores do add to it though, and I'm curious to see how much they'll affect and infect other creatures. And this leads us perfectly to questing is an important part of any game, but it's obviously especially important in a game like this. I'm not a huge fan of grindy games where you do like repetitive actions and missions to unlock things, and I talk about this all the time on the channel, but I'm a much bigger fan of stories and mysteries and lore, and so far it seems like this story is centered around two major things.
To investigate some plague.
And the player character being powerful in some way.
You scare us.
It's funny, because you could say that's similar to Skyrim, in the way that there's this new threat of dragons taking over and affecting everyone's way of life, and at the same time the Dragonborn is up and coming and getting recognition as this powerful new figure in the lands. I mean, you could say that, but obviously I wouldn't say it, because I never compare our Lord and Savior Skyrim to anything ever. Now, I am interested in the, like, spore shenanigans, but stuff like that isn't really my favorite plot point in media. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love The Last of Us and zombie stuff and all that. I'm just a little disinterested in the world is getting infected storyline, but who knows, maybe this will offer some kind of twist on that, and I'm sure there's gonna be some kind of big bad. It's not just gonna be all about spores taking things over, and maybe it's even explored in the pre-existing lore of the game. Yeah, I may have forgot to mention that this isn't the first game in this universe. There's already pre-existing lore. It's kind of a Fallout 3 situation with, like, the gameplay changing and everything like that, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I say that having no prior knowledge of anything about this universe. But anyway, back to the real topic of the video, Skyrim. I might be a little disinterested in the world being infected, storyline and everything, but something I did like in Skyrim was being the Dragonborn the first couple thousand times I restarted Skyrim. After a while, I did start to change my gameplay and not just spam shouts all the time, but anyway, that's besides the point. I'm sure I'm gonna love whatever main character bullshit is going on here too. Unless it's something like we're the only ones that can do magic. I really prefer when other enemies can use magic against you. I think it just helps to flesh out the world and like the magic community in said world. Just figured I'd bring that up because they say the line about us scaring others with our power like right before we do some cool magic stuff. Speaking of magic, I'm sorry, combat? I promise we'll get to the magic in just a second. The teaser trailer was amazing. I get it. Anyway, the combat. So combat in this game looks great, but not necessarily unique. Without talking about magic, we mostly see the players swinging at enemies with swords and axes. I didn't even see any bows. Like, what's up with that? I mean, besides the awesome magic in the teaser, the only other major thing we see is this arrow, like, shooting for miles. Alright, now I'm sure there's gonna be bows and stuff like that, but there's also just straight up guns. At one point in the trailer, the main character literally just whips out 2 pistols and starts blasting. I am not the biggest fan in firearms and stuff like that in a fantasy setting, but I think it does have its place occasionally, and I'm happy that it's old school weapons, not like crazy laser weapons or anything like that. I don't know if those will pop up or if those are already in the lore, but I'm happy that they look like flintlock pistols. I imagine they're gonna be really strong, but probably pretty balanced because flintlock pistols take a long time to reload. I don't know if you know, but yeah, I'm sure the combat's gonna be great. I'm just a little worried that if you're not straight up using magic and guns, you're gonna be doing the old Skyrim thing of just wailing on enemies with your melee weapon. I understand that can be fun, I just don't think it's the most interesting. Nowadays, when I play modded Skyrim, I immediately mod all the combat, so it's super different. I think I play it a little closer to like a Souls game, which is interesting because I don't actually like Souls games, or at least not actually playing them. I really enjoy the lore and like learning about the world and the world building and all that stuff. But anyway, sorry. Alright, finally. The magic is something that has always stood out in Avowed, and it really looks like it aids in the combat a lot. That certainly was a sentence. You can tell that script writing me really got lazy for the second half of the video. I realize the initial teaser trailer has been reviewed probably a million times, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but something that stood out was the way that the magic was done. The drawing of like the spell and the like producing of the magic. So cool. Very, very cool. I think it looked a little better in that teaser trailer than it does in this new trailer, but it doesn't necessarily look bad by any means. Looking at it here, we do still see the player kind of making this circle with these symbols and then producing like a fireball type thing, and it looks super good. Literally fireball spell, and I'm assuming you have to do that because it's a more powerful sort of spell, and I really like that. I like the balance of that. Whereas the clip right after that, they're using like frostbite, I guess, if you want to put it in Skyrim terms, and they don't draw anything. They just bam, shoot it out of their hands, which I like. I like some spells to just be easy to cast. It happens really quickly, and other ones require some stuff. I've been playing a lot of D&D. I've been like super nerding out about D&D, and it's really affected the way I see magic and just world building, everything. It's kind of just enhanced my nerdiness to like a new level. Something I really like in that clip though is the way that it aids in combat. They freeze their enemies sort of, and then when they hit them with their axe, they kind of shatter a little bit. Okay, a lot. They shatter a lot. I love when different combat elements can mix and they do different effects and things like that. I think it really makes a big difference and keeps things interesting and allows for a lot more creative gameplay. In the clip after that, the player character like grabs this enemy with roots at their feet. It looks so cool, and it basically stuns them for you to like wail on them. And I really like that. I love when things go hand in hand, but I'm also very interested as to whether or not magic is required. Are we just a magic user in this world and it's like a necessary part of the gameplay, or is it kind of like the Elder Scrolls where you can pick and choose which classes you kind of want to go into, which skills you want to like gain proficiencies in and stuff like that? I pretty much just really like when there's a lot of choice. My concerns are kind of put at ease when we see the next clip where they're dual wielding axes. There's no magic involved there, so that kind of puts me at ease, makes me feel like, okay, maybe we don't need to use magic, because in games like Skyrim, I don't always want to use magic all the time. Like sometimes I'll whip out a heal spell because it's convenient and easy. I think everybody does that. But again, I really just prefer when there's choice. This clip also shows us that there's going to be some customization. I really like that. You can tell that there's 2 different axes. They use like a sword at one point. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of customization and different weapons with different advantages, disadvantages, stuff like that. Standard stuff for an RPG game, but I'm just excited to see it come to fruition in this game. Also, I really like the skeleton enemies. I don't know. I've been having a liking of skeletal enemies in games recently. They look good. I like them wearing the armor and everything. I think that's really cool. One of the crazy series spells we see is like this gravity ball thing where it's like sucking enemies and gravel and stuff up into the air. That looks so sick. That looks awesome. I really love variety in spells, especially because I've been hearing a lot of magic is lacking in games recently. I've been hearing a lot of that just kind of floating around the internet, saying that magic is like kind of lacking. It's lacking in like creativity, it's lacking in expansion in some games. So it's just really cool to see different kinds of spells rather than just, I don't know, the other basic magic stuff, you know? It's just really cool to see. Now, I imagine this is one of those spells that you would need to do the whole ritual, like drawing symbols and stuff, because this looks pretty strong. So I'm hoping and assuming there's going to be a lot of balancing going on. Something that's also an important part of magic in games and media is like enchanting your weapons and armor, enchanted objects, cursed objects, stuff like that. Super important. One of my favorite things for sure. And I think we see that. That's what I'm assuming this clip is. The player character swings with like this big axe, I think it is, or a greatsword. I think that's a greatsword. And the robes of the enemy they're fighting like catches fire and starts to like burn and everything. And I would have to assume that's some kind of enchantment because the blade also looks like it's on fire. So either there's something in the gameplay that allows you to like put fire on your weapon, or it's enchanted. I'm gonna assume it's enchanted. And I'm really happy to see that. I love enchanting stuff in games. I'm playing an artificer in D&D right now. If you know anything about an artificer, that it tracks. I like enchanting things and making things and creativity in the way that things are made, stuff like that. If you guys would ever like to see me talk about D&D, you can let me know down in the comments below, because I would super love to do that. I really like to share my interests with you guys. I realize that I've been focusing on FNAF a lot, but I like to share my interests occasionally. My other interests, I mean. All right, as much as I love magic in games, one of the most important parts is, again, the story, the plot, the world building. I'm assuming the world building in this game is going to be amazing just because it already has predetermined like lore. Obviously, they will need to come up with new like plot points and new events, and they're going to need to show the world more visually in like a 3D way. But because it's already been established in previous like games and other things like that, I think that just makes it a little bit easier to plan it out visually with the things that you interact with, what people say and do, the places you visit, etc. I'm assuming it's going to be really, really good. And they're already doing a good job by showing off different environments with like townspeople and the townspeople interacting, and just the kind of tone that it sets in the very first seconds of the trailer. It just kind of really shows what this town has gone through at the very least, and kind of just what the state of the world is. But the last most important thing of any Skyrim alternative, any Skyrim like, it's the Bethesda feel. Everyone loves to talk about this. If you talk about any Skyrim alternative, any Skyrim like, everyone will rave about, well, this is missing the Bethesda feel. It doesn't feel like a Bethesda game. Okay, I ranted about Bethesda a little bit, but editing me, script writing me, all of them, they told me to cut that out because it's not gonna... And I totally understand. Everyone loves Skyrim. Everyone loves the Elder Scrolls. It's some of the best games ever. I fully agree with that. Fallout, Skyrim, some of my absolute favorite games of all time. I have put like hundreds, probably thousands of hours into those games collectively. But this game is getting made by Obsidian, who made Fallout New Vegas, which is kind of everyone's favorite Fallout game. It's definitely mine, and it's super well made, and I really trust Obsidian with making games like this. I'm just trying not to get my hopes up too high, because that has not bode me well in the past few years with certain games. But I'm trusting that they're going to do a really good job, and whether or not this has the Bethesda feel is kind of besides the point. I just want a good game. And I don't think everything needs to have that magic Bethesda feel to be an alternative to Skyrim. And not everything needs to even be an alternative to Skyrim to compete with Skyrim. I think this will compete with Skyrim whether or not it feels like it or anything like that. I'm just expecting a pretty good game. At least a solid 7 out of 10. Will my expectations be met or even exceeded? I really hope so. But what do you guys think? Are you guys excited for Avowed? Do you think you're going to start to love this game more than Skyrim? You can let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, you might notice this little join button. I have members stuff now. I'm really, really excited to be announcing that because I was kind of unsure about doing it for a while, but I finally decided to pull the trigger. You can now join the channel and become a member. And by doing so, you'll get exclusive videos, member videos. You'll gain access to polls and stuff like that, which will help you decide what videos I produce next. And I'm currently still working on them, but you'll get access to badges, emojis, all customized for the channel. You'll also gain priority to my replies in the comment section. And kind of my favorite part, you'll get behind the scenes updates. I really like showing the behind the scenes for my videos and stuff like that, even though I don't do it very often, because I really like seeing the behind the scenes for other people's videos. I don't know, it's just this sense of like being closer to the content creator, like as a person. I really value that kind of relationship between viewers and content creators. I think it's really cool, but that's completely optional. If you don't want to do that, you can really help out the channel by hitting like, get subscribed, all that cool stuff. And yeah, that's gonna be just about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the next one, and goodbye.